I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
And I'm Joey.
And we are the Heroes 3 plus Joey. Welcome to Heroes 3, the bi-weekly podcast where three friends explore the best, worst, and everything in between in the world of Asian cinema. And this week we're taking a look at 2002's The Twilight Samurai, directed by Yoji Yamada, and starring, I would say, Heroes 3 all-star at this point, Hiroyuki Sanada. Mm-hmm. And also new to the show, Rie Miyazawa, who we have not seen in the show, but she's definitely of a lot more note than I was expecting before diving into this. But Joey, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I was talking with Carlos a little bit, and we threw out a few different movie options to watch, which I would love to cover all of them at some point. But I don't remember exactly what. I feel like this had just come up in conversation or something, and I was like, you know what? I could really go for rewatching this one. So
was Carlos's prompt, give us one of the best films ever made? Is that what possibly prompted this? Oh my god.
But yeah, I don't know. I love this, and I have a particular attachment to like the director and stuff, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, when you mentioned this, I was already familiar with the film, and knowing your history and knowing what you're into, I thought it would be really be a good time to kind of spotlight this film, and then I guess throw the spotlight on you a little bit in your history with Yoji Yamada. But before we do get into the movie, we're at a little advantageous spot here because I mentioned some episodes ago that I went to Beyond Fest in Chicago, and I intentionally omitted a section of my day, and that day actually had to do with you, Joey. So I was not able to see Meiko Kaji perform or be interviewed, but I did have a very exciting moment when I was waiting to see The Furious, where I was outside of the theater, and I see a small group of people emerge from the theater, and one of those people was Meiko Kaji. She was not more than maybe 15 or 20 feet away from me, and I had honestly a shocking feeling. I couldn't believe that this was like a real person that I could see, and I mean, I wasn't gonna try and get close to her, but you know, it's a tangible person. And then I had
that's amazing.
It was so awesome, and I'm going to pass it to you in a second, but my secondary shock was that I saw you in person. So it was a really exciting day for me for so many reasons, and I'm happy to say that it was to meet you in person for the first time. So that was great, but also since we have you here, I would love to hear about your experience on that day, because you were there more specifically for her, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I was so excited that she was coming to Chicago because I live in Georgia, but and she had come earlier in the year, I think, to LA, and I was like, oh man, that would be great to see, but I just can't get out there. I had recently gone out to the West Coast on vacation, and I just can't do that again. And then she was coming to New York at the same time that I had another event planned in Georgia, and I was like, I could flake on that and like go see her in New York. This is my, I'm essentially getting my second chance. And then a friend of mine who lives in Chicago, Ed, shout out to Ed, messaged me like that she's coming to Chicago, and not only that, but it was on my birthday. And I was just like, okay, this has to happen then. Like, so I made the special trip out there to see her, and it was great. They brought her up like before and after each of the movies, and talked with her a bit. She told some funny stories about like, fake blood malfunctioning and getting absolutely soaked and things like that on Lady Snowblood, and screened Lady Snowblood, which was a huge hit. Everybody really, really had a great time. And then, as one can imagine if they've seen it, they showed the second Scorpion movie, and I think that was a bit more of a mixed reaction with folks, because that one's a rougher movie. But it was great and it was amazing. And then my friend Ed also invited me to stay for a third movie to watch The Furious, so I watched that as well. It was quite a day of basically like flying to Chicago, spending the entire day in a movie theater, and then flying back the next day. But it was awesome. And it was so cool to meet Carlos. Like, we like messaged each other that we were both going to be there. And I was just like, oh, it would be cool if we could see each other, but I don't know, it might not happen. But we got to kind of meet up and with your friend Mike, and it was so cool to meet him as well. I had a great time.
Yeah, what a way to spend your birthday. That's legendary, honestly.
Yeah, that's like your childhood dream. It's like, I'm just going to live in a movie theater for the rest of my life, and
with like one of my favorite actors who
oh my gosh,
lives across the globe, that I basically
and
assumed
she
I would
comes
never
out of
see.
the screen, and then
and she has a t-shirt gun. Watch out!
Yeah, it's so awesome. So I mean, from my perspective, it seemed like them hosting Beyond Fest was a huge success. So I look forward to that happening again sometime. And yeah, I mean, who knows who they'll bring next time?
Yeah, I know. Get Etsuko Shihomi on the scene, right?
Man, yeah, she's really been popping up a lot more. And just recently in the UK, Yukari Oshima showed up for like a theater kind of fan event too. So I mean, these people seem so out of reach, but honestly, I think when I think of this, I think of like for Matthew and Marty and I going to MagFest. There's so many times when like they'll bring a Japanese like video game composer out, and just to see them react to how much, everybody there is excited to see them, and everybody there has appreciated their work like pretty much all their lives. So it's always really fun to see.
It's sort of like this secret is getting unveiled in front of them. Like
exactly.
There's this entire rabid audience that they maybe didn't even know existed. I don't know. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the part of Meiko Kaji's filmography that's celebrated around the world is sort of like seen by her as kind of like a strange era of her past that was these kind of junky movies that she didn't think really deserved acclaim, I think, for a long time. And that was kind of the impression I got. And so there's this sort of reclaiming of it. And it's very cool to hear her talk about it, but she's very down to earth about it, I think, because, there's a sort of workmanlike attitude towards making these types of movies.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I think that echoes kind of the reactions that we see from these Japanese composers that are like, hey, I did this as a job. I mean, I love to do it, but I didn't really hold it up high in value like I feel these people are doing it. But I do, time and time again, they seem so happily shocked that people are kind of just in love with the work that they've done. Yeah, cool. But well, thank you, man. Boots on the ground reporting for Heroes 3.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very cool stuff. No, I'm glad that we get that on the show, because whenever it happened, Carlos was posting about it, and it was like, that's such a cool coincidence, because like I've met Joey a handful of times in real life, but we also live one city away from each other, on the other side of the country. So.
Yep, but
cool.
Yeah, you're next, Marty.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you and Marty need to both go to like San Francisco or something and happen to bump into each other there.
Yep.
Yeah, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, it's Yun Shunyi!" Like,
oh man,
tearing tickets or something.
Amazing.
Like, wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're still
Twilight Samurai.
Yeah, we're gonna focus on you a little bit more, but here we're talking about Tasogare Seibei, the Twilight Samurai, of a really. I mean, a film that I've enjoyed for many years. And this is directed by Yoji Yamada. And this is something that you'll find if you're looking up these... I guess if you're just looking up samurai film on the internet, eventually I feel like you'll encounter this film and the two that follow it. They're kind of called a trilogy here. And this stars Hiroyuki Sanada. And we're getting this kind of very interesting thing where I feel like at the same time where it'll be listed amongst samurai film, it's a bit of a different experience if you're expecting, like a Chambara situation
Mm-hmm.
where there's a lot of
Yeah.
maybe action.
Yeah, a lot of blood and
Yeah.
geysers and stuff.
Yeah. So in this film, I feel like the drama is more about the life of the samurai, and it's not just anything. It's really kind of like is classist, like kind of oppressed, but heartful samurai, and I think the strengths in the film lie right there. Right.
I think ultimately it really comes down to, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic at all, but what grips us and moves us in storytelling in general and this art of film. I feel like I've mentioned this kind of sentiment maybe like a dozen times over the course of the podcast, where I'm just like hanging my head in shame because this is like a film I really meant to engage with a long time ago. And no excuse, but I think maybe it was, I had always been planning on setting aside time for this trilogy of films. And I had just the very rare treat of sitting down, watching something, and just being convinced, oh, this is maybe one of my favorite films of my life. And
that's awesome.
Going to be with me always. And it probably is helpful to have a little bit of context or forewarning if someone is, I don't know, really like raring for some red meat or something. But I think on the flip side of it, the great treat of this movie is, I don't know, I think you could put it in front of almost any audience. I mean, maybe it sounds weird, but I think it could be a nice double header with some kind of unexpected things. Like, I think you could set it alongside like, a great like Ozu film or something that's like, very oriented around family and kind of observation, or even honestly, like I was thinking often of To Kill a Mockingbird, this beautiful frame story of like this young girl who like reveres her father, this kind of like the summer of my life sort of story. And I don't know. Yeah, everything about this is so damn good. I kind of can't handle it. And I might
amazing.
just be kind of like quiet and gently rocking back and forth through most of this.
It's nice. I was excited that you brought up Ozu because Yamada is a big fan of Ozu and has paid tribute to him with later films. He did a movie called Tokyo Family that's essentially a tribute / partial remake of Tokyo Story. And so I think he owes a lot to Ozu in terms of his like perspective on film, but he's not an Ozu copycat because, for instance, the camera moves, so it's a different kind of experience. But yeah,
but it's so beautiful because it's almost can be kind of like a little bit of a film primer or something because you see how motivated all of the camera motion is, and I don't know. It's just you're really appreciating how intentional everything is in terms of composition and I mean just the pace of this thing. And I also think following kind of like Sanada's kind of rising reputation in the West, I imagine folks are going to be hungry for just for great examples of his work. And yeah, we've got to shove this under their nose, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, speaking to that, the movie itself isn't that easy to come by now. When I was talking to you guys about it, I have like a bootleg DVD that I've had for a really long time, and I got it off of, it's called SamuraiDVD.com, and I think it still exists, the website, but
that's not a legitimate retailer.
No.
They'll take money and give you something in exchange, so it's legitimate in that sense.
But I was happy to hear from you, Joey. You have it, and it's from a label called Twilight, correct?
Twilight Time.
Twilight
is
Time.
the label. Yeah, there was this boutique label in the kind of early Blu-ray days called Twilight Time that I don't know if that's related to the fact that
Did they do a lot of isolated score things? Because I know of a couple, like there's this obscure John Williams like romantic comedy that I know they released like an isolated score Blu-ray of.
Oh, perhaps, because that's a special feature on my disc is there is a way that you can watch the movie with just the score playing, which is interesting.
Well, and speaking to that too, the composer for for this film, Isao Tomita is pretty well known. Like he's like a early Japanese pioneer of analog synthesizers.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe was, I don't know, with what Marty says, maybe this small boutique label was kind of leaning on the music side of things. But I mean, sorry, back to you, Joey.
Well, also this movie was nominated for an American Academy Award. So I think that is why it has more recognition. I'd say of Yoji Yamada's movies, it's the one that has the most recognition in the United States. And then his following his like samurai trilogy. And so I would guess, I've always kind of just assumed that that's why they released it. But
Sure,
I don't know.
sure.
Because they've also released The Yellow Handkerchief, which is another movie of his from the 70s.
Great.
But yeah, they're a really cool label, but they're gone now, and so all their discs are out of print. And as we were discovered in our chat, like that Blu-ray I have goes for, or is at least listed for, very high prices on secondhand sites.
Yeah, so I don't mean to tease everyone about that Blu-ray, but yeah, it exists, but it's gonna be hard to get.
It exists, but you can't get it.
Yeah, but I mean, here we are to appreciate this film, and I feel like
Totally.
yeah, just like so many other movies we've talked about, and actually surprisingly, a lot of Japanese films that we've talked about, they just don't have the same level of appreciation. It's that time and time again where if it's really not Kurosawa or a couple of other names, you don't really get the level of appreciation that you feel it needs.
Yeah, so true.
That led me down kind of a weird rabbit hole. I guess I'm getting into the rabbit hole before I get into what I think of the movie. I really love this movie. That's the short version, I guess. But it led me down a weird rabbit hole looking into it because it got nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. Actually, the same Oscars where Return of the King won 8 million Oscars. It was the same year as that. And it lost to a French-Canadian comedy called The Barbarian Invasions, which I just thought was kind of random. But there's only been 2 Japanese winners of that category, the foreign language film and now Best International Film. And one of them is Drive My Car from 2021, which isn't too much of a shocker there. The other one was called Departures that I never heard of. But a lot of Kurosawa stuff won like honorary Oscars later, but
I thought
not,
Ron won
but like later on.
but-
I think Ron wasn't submitted the year it came out. That was like a big controversy. I remember seeing that in the research. So yeah, that was just a little diversion that I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, I was not. I had literally zero expectations for this movie. I had absolutely no idea. I knew it was a period piece, and that was about it. So it was really cool seeing that it was like this kind of like a family drama, but like basically about a guy that's just super content to have a family and just raise them. And all these other things are getting pushed on him, but he's kind of happy to just raise his family, which I kind of love. That's such a small kind of story.
And just the most admirable character, kind of on every front. It's just wow.
Yeah, definitely, totally, very, very, very Akis Finch-ish.
Right.
Well, again, Joey, if you would indulge us a little bit, I know you're a huge fan of Yoji Yamada because of another, I guess, a cascade of films that I also feel like is pretty much overlooked here in the West. I do.
Yeah.
I mention it to people and I have to kind of describe it to them, but yeah, could you tell us about Tora-san a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, and why don't I just talk about Yoji Yamada a bit in general?
Sure.
Please.
Because I think it'll really inform what this movie is too. Like exactly what Matthew was saying about it being this kind of like family drama. So yeah, Yoji Yamada, like I said, he's most well known for this movie in America because it was nominated for that Academy Award. But I think what his real legacy is going to be is that he was the co-writer and director of a Guinness World Record holding series of films, or the longest film series starring the same actor in the lead role, for the 50-film Tora-san series. Known as the title is Otoko wa Tsurayo, which means it's tough being a man. And this is the core of the series is 48 films that came out over about 25 years. And then it was followed by 2 additional anniversary movies over several years later. So it's technically 50 films spanning 50 years. But the bulk of it is that 48 in 25 years. And these are family comedies. Like Yoji Yamada kind of specializes in I'd say working class stories about like everyday people. And the Tora-san movies specifically are about this guy, Torajiro Kuruma, who goes by the nickname Tora-san. And he is a tekiya, which is a type of yakuza, technically, like a street seller. And tekiya set up on the side of the road or at festivals and sell like cheap junk that are supplied to them by the yakuza. And that's where that connection is. Like, he's not really involved in like illicit, drugs or prostitution or any of that stuff that usually comes into the mind with yakuza, but he's selling knockoff goods and things like that.
Fun crimes.
And his story is that he left home when he was a middle schooler. He ran away from home and became associated with the yakuza and became a tekiya. And then in the first film, he comes home for the first time, and he's an adult and reunites with his younger sister Sakura, who's an adult as well, and his older aunt and uncle who run the sweet shop. And then the following movies, he's always kind of traveling around Japan, selling his wares, and then will stop in at this sweet shop. It's a dango shop, actually, but in Tokyo, and always kind of causes trouble for his family because he lives outside the bounds of polite society. And also, maybe more importantly, inevitably encounters a beautiful woman, either in Tokyo or in his travels, who he falls in love with. And each movie kind of centers around that woman and her story. And then by the end of each film, inevitably, they don't end up together, and he goes off into the sunset in a bittersweet moment. And that's essentially the formula. Like, when you read about the Tora-san movies, people are very quick to mention that they're very formulaic and repetitive and things like that, but it's kind of sitcom-y in a way, but it's made with the same care that this movie was made with, and so they're actually very beautiful movies and very silly movies at the same time. And if you do, in fact, as I have, watch all 50 of them, like by the end of it, you feel very like you feel like these people are your family, And when I hear about that movie Boyhood, which was made over 10 years, it's a very different kind of project, obviously, that has different goals and stuff. But I'm always kind of a little bit like, hold my beer, because
you think that's cool,
but because the thing about these Tora-san movies is it's the same cast more or less for the entire 25 years and entire 50 years, really. And not only do you see them age in real time, and their characters, change ever so slightly over time, but you see Japan change and you see culture change, and it's like really a document of like everyday life in Japan, which is really
that's super cool,
incredible, and awesome. And I've watched many of the movies several times, and I've watched the whole series through a few times actually, and I'm very obsessed. And Yoji Yamada himself, like, would, even while making those movies, would make an additional movie every few years. So he has that filmography as well as the movies that he was making before and after the Tora-san series. And so he has a actually 91 filmography at the moment. Still alive. Just had a movie come out last year, which I'm dying to see.
Yeah, he's in his mid 90s now, and still doing stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. He's really great. But I guess this is all to say, like what I said earlier, he specializes in these kind of like stories of everyday people, working class types of stories, and he doesn't tend to make period films. Like, besides this trilogy, I think there's maybe one other from before he started the Tora-san movies. And so it's very unusual for him to make a samurai movie, but you can see now why this movie is the way it is because it is kind of a working class look at what samurai life
Absolutely.
was like, right?
And in that context, you really appreciate how he's kind of not sensationalizing the period. It's just a very kind of quiet, almost objective camera into this family's life. That's great.
Yeah, because a lot of his movies focus on like farmers or teachers, factory workers, and I think he's very intent on having a kind of humanistic look at these types of people, and so he brought that to the Twilight Samurai, and it's one of the reasons why it's super good.
Yeah. The things that really jump out at you when you watch this film in comparison to a lot of other period films and Chambara films are you almost get locked into the tropes of it all. And this movie, will take a complete left turn in what you're usually expecting, a person, like how they respond, even just in a normal conversation, how you normally respond to a person in this class system. It's almost refreshing in this film to see them be very open about their emotions and very direct to like maybe somebody of a higher standing, and you're almost like thrown off what you're expecting to see.
Maybe this is getting too much into the movie, but the scene with the great uncle is like one of my favorite scenes. Because it's like this super old school, very conservative, like lowercase c conservative guy coming in and being like, hey, your daughter doesn't need to learn how to read. You need to just get a wife. And then whenever he leaves, his daughter being like, I don't like him, and the dad being like, I don't like him either, which is so nice.
I think he says he hates him.
Yeah. He says he hates him, which I love that because you're usually expected to be like, I know, but he's your elder and whatever. He's like, no, I don't like that guy, and you shouldn't like him either.
Yeah, and the even the simple fact that our lead is amongst a family of all females, and all of the main characters around him are that are closest to him are female. You would expect to be a more respectful, reserved kind of way, but it's really exciting to see how they handle these characters' developments just through this 2-hour film.
Yeah, and a big thing that's being depicted here is how culture is changing at this time, and its attitude towards women is like a big part of that, which is interesting to see. That actor, by the way, Tetsuro Tamba, I don't know if you guys know that guy, Tetsuro Tamba.
Oh yeah, legend.
Yeah,
Tiger Tanaka.
Tiger Tanaka in You Only Live Twice, and in lots and lots of other like samurai movies and crime movies and stuff.
Well, I was thinking about that too, because if you recognize him, you're like, whoa, that's kind of a big name to just kind of tuck into this scene here, and it kind of calls to the caliber of film that you're watching. And I was thinking about you being on the podcast, and we did Makai Tensho, and there's so many people in that, and of course, he's in that as well.
Yeah,
right.
I was gonna say, I know he was in some other another Japanese movie. We had
I think the only other one that we've seen him in for the podcast is Message from Space.
Which is a very small role in that one. He's kind of forgettable. I would say. Yeah.
Right. He's like, was he the president of Earth in that? I can't remember.
Or the commander of the army or something. I'm
like
picturing him with like a military, like a white military uniform. I don't remember.
Yeah. But okay, so we're definitely all warmed up. So let's jump into this.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, let's take a look. Does the bootleg DVD have something blurb on the back?
Oh yeah, probably. I can look it up.
Then I'll take a look at the back of the DVD.
Humble Squire Seibei Eguchi makes his way home to tend to his daughters and aging mother. In a time where class and currency draw distance between clans, he is completely selfless in the dedication to his family. But when love and war re-enter his life, will he be brave enough to open his heart and unsheath his blade? Lifelong director Yoji Yamada steps into Japan's Edo period to weave a tale of heroism and heartbreak. Rie Miyazawa and Hiroyuki Sanada tell the story of the Twilight Samurai.
So the movie is basically all about this our leading man, Seibei Eguchi, or Iguchi, I guess. And he is a samurai, like a very low-ranking samurai that works as a bureaucrat. After his wife passes away, he has to raise his daughters on his own. And it kind of just follows people kind of trying to tell him what to do and to like get remarried, and just lots of pressures from all the people around him in his life. He reconnects with an old childhood friend, Tomoe, played by Rie Miyazawa. Man, my God, why am I not messing up all these names today? Tomoe, played by Rie Miyazawa. Sorry, I had to say it like that. I've been tripping over them. And they kind of reconnect. He kind of fumbles her at one point, which I was like, "Come on, man, what are you doing?"
Yeah, she's basically his like lifelong flame, and he's been so proud and dignified that he's never kind of spilled the beans.
Yeah. But this all is happening like just before the Meiji restorations. Like there's a lot of high tensions about this old system and people trying to unify Japan, and a lot of conflict brewing. And that eventually leads to another samurai kind of family clan all being ordered to kill themselves, and this old samurai saying, "I'm not going to do that." And our Twilight Samurai Seibei has to go in and do it, and kind of doesn't want to, leading to one of the best scenes in the movie where the two of them talk, and eventually they come to conflict. Seibei wins and lives happily for about 3 years, and then the flash forward says he died in a different conflict. But he won the girl, he won the day, and that's kind of what the movie's about.
Yeah, it's awesome, and
it's so good.
You're kind of thrust into this world that you may have already kind of remotely known from the tropes of samurai film, but you're seeing this man that's really content with his life, but you see that his life is a struggle. He doesn't make enough money. His family is of a lower class because of that. His wife has passed from disease. They say
everything in their house and in their wardrobe is falling apart.
There are holes in the paper.
There are holes in like the screen.
And he cares for his aging mother who has dementia.
The mother doesn't recognize him most of the time.
When
I tell people about this, to give an example, I say, he's a samurai, but he's more like a samurai accountant. He's literally a bean counter.
Right.
Literally a bean counter. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another one of the great strengths of this film is that it handles both these very heavy kind of tones, but also kind of perfectly balances it with very light outlook, and kind of will cut through a serious moment with a lighthearted joke. Like when we talk about the mother that has dementia, it's a running joke on whether she remembers him or not. And at the same time, anytime that he's pushed into a corner because of the system around him, you can really get the sense that he can survive any hardship because he has the family that he's taking care of. And time again, these people just look at him like he's a freak, a weirdo. Like, dude, you're so weird. Like, you have no ambition. What's wrong with you? Because everybody else is kind of clawing, trying to get to the top of this pyramid.
Well, and often the behavior that he's like called out for really has to do with, his thoughtfulness, and he tends to have these holistic views that are quite philosophical and everything. And he's very measured in what he decides to do and not do, what aspects of his duty he decides to kind of join in, and what he tries to resist. And I don't know. Yeah, it all just makes it the kind of the perfect film protagonist, because you start rooting for him heavily so early on in the film, and you just find yourself kind of aligning with all of his decisions and choices and just his attitudes about things. And like what I like is we're definitely describing, I think, the meat of the movie really well, but as far as the tone, it's like while it lives in this very warm, like familial place, I don't know if the movie does have these teeth, and so you really do feel like, I don't know, anything could happen at any time, and certainly when it comes to his prowess as a fighter, it's you sort of believe in him, kind of reading between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not. I mean, this is as far from an overconfident hero as you could probably find. Whenever he has a moment to himself, you can just sort of see the burdens that are weighing on him. And I don't know, it keeps the story extremely engaging from beginning to end, whereas I think I could imagine a different kind of interpretation of this tale that feels maybe a bit too light and sort of episodic.
Mm.
And I don't know. I mean, I think that, just Yamada just balances all of that impeccably. Amazing.
I'm glad you mentioned episodic because this is actually based on some written works. So the stories that we see in this film, is kind of a combination of a handful of short stories by Shuhei Fujisawa, and he published these stories in like the 80s. And from what I could read, and I haven't read the material myself, but for a long time, a lot of people thought that adapting his works were pretty difficult. And I think Yoji Yamada is kind of actually making a statement that he did do this. And I looked up synopses of some of the stories that are the basis for this. And once you kind of understand that, you can kind of see, and this isn't a criticism, but you can kind of see some of the themes. So the name Twilight Samurai is kind of like this name given to our lead in jest. And here, I forget what they say. It's something like he has to get home by dusk. He doesn't stay out with his coworkers. And actually, we're here in the West, but in Japan, like business culture, there's like the yomikai where all the employees go out to drink afterwards, and it's like kind of like an essential part of your work life to do that. And you see that a little bit in this movie. But in the Twilight Samurai, the short story, it's that he's been so burdened with his life outside of work that he would like doze off at work during the day, and he's like more active towards the evening. So that's why they call him that in the original material. But
sort of nocturnal or something.
Yeah. The other thing that I saw is that there isn't like a tomoe in the stories that you see, but there's another short story called like the celebratory sukehachi, and that's basically the kind of idea what you see of his relationship with Tomoe, how she's been in a marriage that fell apart, and the husband was abusive, and then he stands up to defend her, and then he's thrust into this duel, and how that all develops. So it's interesting that you kind of have like layers of, I think, 2 or 3 stories. I think the idea of the bamboo sword that we see towards the end, and I mean, I kind of feel like we're really gonna be jumping around just because of our enthusiasm for the movie, and I'm okay with it. But that idea is from another story as well. But the way that Yamada has weaved these stories, and I've tried to kind of pursue to read these, but they're a bit hard to come by in English. So from what I could read in my internet research, it sounds like the material that I was able to read about was woven together pretty confidently here.
Yeah, it really sounds like it.
Oh, it's interesting what you said about there being like so many layers to it. Layers of stories upon stories. But as Marty was talking about, these reasons why he has a very like different thinking than his peers, and then you kind of laying out the differences between why he's called Twilight in the movie versus why he's called Twilight in the books. It kind of made me think about how well it progresses from. It first just seems like he is ostracized from the group due to circumstances, because he has to leave so he doesn't hang out with everyone, because he's so poor, his clothes are shabby, and he doesn't have a wife. His clothes are shabby and he smells bad and things like that. And so at first you're kind of like, oh, this poor guy, because of his like life circumstances, he doesn't fit in with the rest. But then as you get to know him, you really see that it is because also he has a kind of different way of thinking that doesn't match up with the way that so many of his coworkers and fellow samurai think, and you see that play out over the entire movie, and you kind of get to know the character better as it unfolds. And I think that's really, really well done.
No, that's such a beautiful point. And I mean, also just tend to be really hooked with any kind of period story that's capturing, not trying to be punny or whatever, but kind of like the twilight of a particular era. And I think this just ends up being such a juicy moment because as the audience, I think we kind of sort of come to feel that, his own personal code of ethics actually ends up standing a little bit stronger. And it just is maybe kind of a more honorable system than what he's being asked to kind of uphold. And we're starting to see really kind of the cracks in maybe kind of an aging samurai culture or something. And I don't know, that juxtaposition of, I think, us as an audience really finding all this, finding all this virtue in Seibei, but then he's being openly depicted as, almost kind of this rule breaking, like blasphemer or something.
And
I
he
don't know.
stinks. He's a stinky guy.
Yeah, it's just like it's such a rich thing, and this doesn't feel like to me like a manipulative kind of movie, but I don't know. I think other storytellers could take note. It's like, if you really want to root for your hero, continue to emphasize how right he is in like a broken down world that is kind of like tilting away from virtue or something.
And the all the people that are kind of, most of them, I think Inuma, his friend, kind of chastises him a little bit, but it's in a kinder way. But everybody else, they're like kind of like the cardboard cutout of a villain. I mean, his his boss,
he's like the abusive ex-husband and
Yep.
boss that's overbearing and like telling me to do stuff, or otherwise he'll get ostracized.
It's just like, and the uncle, Tetsuro Tamba's character, which that is really a standout scene for me as well. It's perfectly balanced in kind of like that kind of heavy weight, but also like the perfect comedic timing as well. I mean, I'll like touch on like some points in the movie just to kind of fill a timeline, but
sure.
So like right at the beginning, we're seeing the funeral of his wife, and actually in the short story, the Twilight Samurai story, there's a situation where his wife is sick and he gets put upon to do like an assassination, and then he is able to do that, and then they're afforded a physician, and then she does completely recover. So that's a very different kind of idea in that short story. And I don't mean to lean on it too much, but it jumped out at me because I'm so familiar with the film. It makes
interesting.
It makes me really want to read these short stories. But
and also just appreciate the really clever and big swings that we're taking here in the adaptation. That's
So you do see him at work. At first I thought they were like transcribing or something, and then you see his home life with his daughters, and they're adorable. Both daughters are so clever and so
incredibly cast.
Quick-witted. There's a wonderful scene where his older daughter Kayako, if I remember her name right, she's reciting like Confucius, and he recognizes that, and he takes time to speak to her about how important it is to learn and
the
to
power
read.
Of thinking.
He says something like that. Like she's debating on whether she should continue this reading like work, or if she should focus on like making kimono, because that would be like more valuable to her as a wife. And he says to her, it's like, if he's considering it, and he's like, well, if you do keep studying, it helps you think. And in times of hardship, that's like a power that you'll have. you'll always be able to survive if you have the ability to think for yourself. And I mean, I think that's a timeless statement.
Yeah.
Now,
sure.
now, not to go into AI again, guys, but like I feel like to be able to think for yourself and not let something else take that power away from you is getting more and more important. And I think
Totally.
the way that he handles that scene with his daughters is so beautiful.
And I mean that's all. I mean, even before AI, that's always a think of a kid or a high schooler saying like, when am I ever going to use this?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, right.
and it's like, well,
Mhm.
you're probably not going to use philosophy in like your working life, but like it is still good to understand like why people act certain ways and different approaches, and having just a better understanding of the world, even if your day-to-day life, the thing that literally gets you money doesn't require it. There's more to life than that,
Yeah, I was getting uncomfortable with the last point, so I just asked Grok if it was true, and it stole my credit card number. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But said that you were the smartest person here, and that
Yeah. Exactly.
you didn't need to understand
the other
that
heroes
stuff.
have been holding you back.
That's how you know it's wrong. Yeah,
Give you that little treat, keep you going. But as we see his job, his day to day, there's a surprise visit from like a lord, and this his hygiene comes into play here because they kind of joke about it earlier that he's so busy taking care of his family and taking care of work, he doesn't have time to take care of himself, and that kind of is the pinnacle moment right here where he's in the middle of seeing his boss's boss basically, and the boss's boss notices, hey, he's like, hey man, you stink. And then that of course embarrasses his boss, and it turns into kind of a whole like gossipy thing for him. And
I do love that the Lord that points it out is pretty chill about it.
he's less cartoony. Yeah, he's not a total two-dimensional.
He's like, oh man, you should keep yourself clean. And then everyone else is like, I can't believe you did that. You brought dishonor to all of us.
Yeah, and that's kind of what draws out his uncle in the scene that you mentioned earlier. And
right, it's like an intervention basically.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so he's offering like a marriage arrangement, and this is when you kind of get his like pure outlook on life. He's like, hey, as long as I got my daughters and I can watch them grow, I'll be fine. And you get a sense of like this class struggle. So since he's of a certain amount, and anybody that basically would marry into his family would also kind of be brought down to that level. He feels like he doesn't want to burden whoever that would be, and honestly, he's not interested. He's more interested in his daughter.
Right.
Yeah, it's very sweet because like he just straight up says, "I'm like, no, it doesn't like I might look like I'm miserable, like I don't have my life together, but I have like a lot of joy in my life." And the uncle's like, "That's stupid."
Yeah, and I love the perfectly timed moment of the mom entering the room.
Yes,
and just totally
so
like not
funny.
even remembering who this guy is. And he's like,
your own brother.
oh, and he even says like, what will the neighbors think? One of these like typical things you would see. And the scene is just the perfectly capped with him reaching for the hot pot and burning his own hand.
Right. Well, it's the special tone of the film, and I mean, and it sounds like this. This maybe typifies Yamada's movies in general, but it's it is really funny, but it is also bitter, and it's it's all of it, and it's quite beautiful. I mean, I also love this is maybe one of the first incidents where we see kind of Sanada's refusal of kind of this cultural norm. But I think what's also really crucial is it's like, this isn't someone that acts like a renegade. Like he's always trying to deliver things like within the cultural confines of like politeness and decency. But I don't know, everybody else kind of ends up unmasking themselves, or they kind of reveal like, oh, they don't really care about that. It's like they care about the actual idea, and they're pissed off and impatient with him, basically for not complying, not kind of getting in line or whatever.
Yeah, you've got a handful of moments where, yeah, their reaction to his actions are completely stuck in the structure of the system they're living in. They're like,
Right.
don't you understand that people will think this? And it's not just him, actually. Later in the film, you have a moment where Tomoe, who I'll talk about introducing her just after this, she does the same thing, where she wants to kind of break away from the traditions, and somebody like that's her senior is like, you can't do that. Like, if people see you doing that, they'll think a thing. And it's like, well, why wouldn't I want to do that? It's really cool to see that in this movie. But yeah, speaking of Tomoe, so now shortly after these interactions, we get introduced to her, and it's through Inuma, her brother, and he's talking to his compatriot Iguchi about his life, and he mentions Tomoe, and once her name is mentioned, you see Iguchi kind of straighten up, and he finds out about her situation. So she had been in a marriage that was arranged by Inuma, and this man ended up becoming like a drunkard. He was abusive,
a mean drunk, I think he said.
Yeah, it was to the point where they actually had to force a divorce. And the moment that Iguchi hears that she's been in such a situation, you can see his whole kind of demeanor change.
Yeah, it's like, say.
Yeah. But it's really fun too, because it's just shortly after that she arrives at his home, and once she's introduced, even I feel like even the score acknowledged her. Like the music. There's not a lot of score in the film, but it's very effective when it shows up, and she's a complete change in the household. They even acknowledge it. The narration that we should mention that too. So Ito, the youngest daughter, serves as kind of like bookends. She brings in the film with a narration, but it's her as an older woman. And then
Keiko Kishi is the actress, big classic actress who was love interest in one of the Tora-san movies as well.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, so she chimes in this narration saying how the light in their house was brighter the moment that Tomoe showed up.
Yeah, the daughters just fall for her kind of immediately. Just kind of lovely.
Yeah. So then one night, they're walking home. Iguchi's walking Tomoe home, and there's some commotion, and we find out that this is Kudo Toyotaro, the ex-husband. He's drunk and he's making a scene, and she actually, in another very modern moment, she stands up to him. She says, "What I do is no business to you, and you're just like basically get out of here." And he doesn't take that lightly. He slaps her, and the moment that happens, Iguchi steps in, and he's being as respectful as he can, but he's also being very commanding in his force. So and
it's amazing because we see basically the person that he is in this first little example of his combat, and he's just kind of ingeniously restraining this drunk man. And it's mostly in kind of a single take, very quiet camera here. I don't know, this is incredible scene.
If I could jump in too, the Toyotaro is played by Ren Osugi, who is in a bunch of stuff, and I always think of him as the shocked president in Shin Godzilla. But he's I think he's great in this kind of role because I've heard that he was kind of not a super great guy in real life, so it's kind of always happy to see him be kind of a jerk on screen.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, jerk gets hit with a big stick.
I also think of him as like the principal from Zebra Man. He was like
I was gonna say he's in Zebra Man.
He's the green sharts that he had to deal with. Oh man,
what a goofy movie.
Yeah, but so he, he's a drunkard, but he's a proficient swordsman, and this interaction forces a duel basically. And Inuma, Seibei's buddy's like, dude, I don't know, man. You should probably like take your time with this. But Seibei, he's forced into this, and it's really based on his
and
emotions.
it's basically kind of no win, because it's like,
Yeah.
Obviously he wouldn't want to be killed, but if he kills his opponent, he's basically violating the code of his clan.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not supposed to
and so you just
Mm-hmm.
so you get this great beat. I mean, I'll think of something, and he absolutely does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they show him training, and it's pretty obvious that he's not had to worry about this for a long time, and he's got this stick that he's kind of swinging around, and then when he shows up for the duel itself, he's got the stick. And it's more than that too. Inuma, his buddy, is there trying to start this duel himself, so he gets there fast enough to avoid Inuma getting hurt, but now he's stuck in a situation where this swordsman basically wants to kill him, and he refuses to use a sword, so he's got to make this work. And so the other thing we should mention, if you look in the credits, the Japan Action Club is a part of this film. Hiroyuki Sanada, of course, is here.
Yep, of course.
And
and he jumps over a guy. He jumps over Renasugi in that scene. It's incredible. It's a very subtle, scene in general, but jumping Hiroyuki does his thing, and it's pretty amazing.
Yep.
Oh, it's so good. And
for a movie that is very much, it's a pretty slow family drama, it does have this really cool explosion of action in this spot that's like genuinely really just a really great samurai showdown,
completely.
like we've seen in classic Shambara stuff.
Oh, nice. You mentioned Samurai Showdown. Don't get me started.
Sorry, lowercase letters, Samurai Showdown.
Actually, I mean, so they mentioned consumption in this film, because that was, of course, a thing that many people of that era dealt with. That was tuberculosis. And in Samurai Showdown, the game, one of the main characters, he suffers from that. So, when he has a win pose, he'll cough into his hand. It's so awesome.
Oh my God.
And, I mean,
that's so funny.
To connect things further,
I should have said it.
It's cool. It's really short, but it was surprising to me. I've been watching these Shinobi no Mono films through the Radiance sets, and in the sixth film, there's a character that reveals his true name, and it's Ukyo Tachibana. No, but Ukyo Tachibana is this character that I'm talking about, and so in Samurai Showdown, Ukyo Tachibana is based on Sasaki Kojiro, Musashi's legendary rival.
Oh, okay.
But as far as I know, in history there is no actual Ukyo Tachibana. But it was so surprising to me to see that name show up in Shinobi no Mono. So I don't know if maybe that name in the game is calling to this character, but it's a very casual reveal.
Did he
in
have
that
consumption
movie.
in the
He
film?
didn't. No, it had no connecting besides that name. But anyways, back to this.
It's
Well,
a cool name too. It's very
it is
evocative.
cool.
Yeah. I think I wouldn't be surprised if that was a reference, because there's a Samurai Showdown's just full of references.
Oh
to,
yeah, absolutely.
that kind of stuff.
So it was cool
I love
for me to see it.
I love kind of unpeeling stuff like that in movies and things like that. Being like, oh man, that's what this was referencing that I've seen my whole life and didn't even know.
It's the best.
Yeah.
But talking to this fight, and so he is successful. He leaps over him and knocks him out. But before that shot, they have pretty involved choreography, and like I said, it's Hiroyuki Sanada using a wooden stick and Ren Osugi using a katana blade, and it's in one take. This whole sequence of maybe 15-20 seconds of choreography. And it looks beautiful. And earlier, Marty, you were mentioning the camera movement, and both of you, Joey and Marty. And I was really paying attention to it there, because you can really get the sense that they were framing a shot, but they understood that there's going to be some involved choreography. So it's very delicate in the left and right movement of the camera during this short take. And I love it. It's so great. The other thing that I should mention to you is that this movie is almost, to me, it seems like almost naturally lit the whole film. It looks, not as dramatic as you would expect to see, but it's really beautiful in how natural everything looks.
Yeah, that's a thing that really struck me. It's interesting because on one hand it kind of makes everything this kind of brown, because
Mm.
it's like
Right,
true to the
right.
time, and so it's a little flat in that way, but it's
Sure,
still
sure.
very beautifully framed and beautifully shot. And then there's, to jump ahead a bit, in the last scene where they suddenly burst outside and you see those yellow flowers. It's like this crazy pop of color and light,
Yeah,
and it's very, very effective. So
absolutely.
I like it and I respect it, but it is, in a way, it is something that struck me in the past as kind of, I don't know, something that I wish there was maybe just a little bit more color. But then at the same time, it might take away from that kind of humble, historically accurate aspect of it,
Yeah, I did
Yeah.
read
Yeah,
that.
I was also kind of curious about just the preparation and the
Oh, yeah.
DI and the grade. Like I don't know. I could imagine this source maybe being presented just slightly differently. I mean, and I know we probably can't hope for a 4K remaster from the negative or something, but yeah, there is a little bit of I feel like visual distance from that kind of early 2000s digital intermediate kind of thing. But
Totally. And yeah, that's actually, yeah, there's one very weird jump up of computer graphics later on with the flies
Mm.
on the dead body,
Right.
which definitely I was like, oh, okay. All right, 2002.
Yeah. Mhm.
But otherwise, like the film really does look, I don't know, it looks,
very classic. I mean,
yeah, very classic. It looks very old school in a positive way. Like most of the film, like if I had heard that it was shot in like, the mid 80s, I feel like I would have believed it.
right.
So moving us forward just a little bit, there was some like tact to Iguchi doing this. He didn't want Tomoe to know about it. He didn't want to feel like she was put upon because of how he feels for her or whatever. But eventually she does find out, and she writes him a letter about it. So there's a little bit of friction now added into their relationship, and to add to that, Inuma and Iguchi are fishing, and during their conversation, he mentions that she's been like
She
basically,
likes you. Yeah.
yeah, receiving suitors, and she's been denying them. But he jokingly mentions Seibei, and he said that she was blushing, like, and his reaction is so cute to me, where he's like, "Oh, stop making fun of me! You guys are like making fun of how I like this girl."
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But
And then it's just like the noblest thing in the world. It's like, I've got to be serious right now. It's a no because I could never make her happy. She'll be miserable. Like and I don't know, what I love about this is where, I don't know, we get a little bit more of a reveal of what the dynamics would have been with his late wife. And it turns out that she was probably going to be eternally unhappy with this kind of like class shift of kind of marrying someone kind of from kind of like a lower situation. And I don't know, I think even in this moment it's kind of delicious because this is maybe one of the first instances where we're really disagreeing with our hero, because we've met Tomoe and we really don't believe that class motivates her in that same way, and we see how she cares for him and his daughters. But yeah, it does. I mean, I love what you said, Carlos, about friction. It's like, yeah, we're really starting to dial it up here.
Yeah, this is also, there's kind of like a time limit on this, because Inuma also mentions that there's some unrest. So the lord that kind of chastised Iguchi earlier, he's passed away, and this is kind of like a secret, and people are worried about war breaking out or factions trying to take over, and he's going to be leaving to the capital soon in like something like 3 days, so he's hoping for an answer within that time. And yeah, but Iguchi's response, like you said, and yeah, then it's kind of like a chapter break in a way, because you get more narration here, and it says that Tomoe stopped showing up regularly after this happened, and now we're seeing this situation where the death of this lord is revealed, and now there's going to be a different set of challenges thrust our way for our
Mhm.
little family.
Yeah, because I think that's we should go into the like kind of the basically the last half of the movie is the preparing for the duel
Yeah.
and then
Right.
and all that.
So we can, I'll push us towards that. So,
Yeah, go for it.
the boss mentions this death to everybody, and everybody starts to gossip. And shortly after that, his boss shows up at his place at night, and he's like, "Hey, man, like, you gotta come with me right now. We gotta talk about something." And he takes him to these senior officials, and I mean, the dude sitting in the back looks straight up like a cartoon like villain. Like, he's got like dark makeup around his eyes even.
Yeah.
um and they're letting him know this situation. So um uh Iguchi's reputation as like a swordsman is kind of preceding him, because um there is after the duel, I'll jump back a little bit. There was
the one person that called it out, actually.
Yeah,
it's
there
kinda
was
interesting.
this dude that just showed up by his workplace, and he's like, "Hey man, Koda was my like drinking buddy, and I hear that you're from this sword school." And he's like, "Someday we should duel," and he politely declines. And
Yeah,
now we
this is
find out,
Yoro.
It's like very classic samurai movie, kind of
Right.
semi-friendly interaction with somebody who
Mm.
you're gonna
Yeah.
have to duel later. Yeah.
Who you're gonna have to kill at some point in
Yeah.
the movie. Yeah.
Yep. And now we're seeing this play out. So this man, he's actually barricaded himself in his home,
Mhm.
and he and his clan have been ordered to commit seppuku, to kill themselves for the government, and he's refusing to do that. So there's kind of a standoff happening, and Iguchi's skill with the kodachi, which is like the smaller sword of the two that you
Yeah.
standardly see with samurai, is perfect for this situation, because you've got a swordsman in a home with low ceilings, and a small sword is perfect to do the job. And we've already sent a couple of guys out to get killed, and you see that play out.
That is very funny.
Mhm.
That little flashback where the guy comes in, and it's so because it totally feels like it's a scene from a different samurai movie, but there's
Oh,
no
I like
cool
that.
fight scene. He just holds up the thing, be like, "Hey, I'm coming here to kill you,"
Mhm.
and then he walks in and instantly gets killed and falls dead outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great sound design in that
Mhm.
spot.
Oh yeah.
So they're kind of forcing him into this situation, and he, in the most respectful way possible, says that he doesn't feel like he's equipped to do it, and they bully him into it. So he doesn't actually like accept it, but he says that he obeys their command.
Obeys. Oh, that's a
So
beautiful
it's like
moment, man.
so smart in how they handle this. Yeah, so now he's got to do this, and he actually a surprisingly nice moment between him and his boss afterwards, where they're leaving, and you can see that his boss, is thanking him for this, but he also feels sort of pained by it. And Iguchi actually is like completely thankful to him for everything he's done, even though from our eyes he's been a burden on him just as much as his situation. And you see that the boss has a kind of a brief moment, and he says to him like, "Hey, if you do, if the worst thing does happen, I'll take care of your family." And you can tell that it's a big relief for Iguchi to hear that, which is pretty nice, honestly. Not what I would have expected in an arc of like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that boss, played by Ninji Kobayashi, who's a Yoji Yamada regular, he's in a bunch of his movies. Yeah, Yamada
cool.
has a stable of actors that he pulls from a lot in his films.
Yeah, I was hoping I would hear something like that. It seemed to be the case. And I love that he almost has like a red blush makeup on, though, like a manga character.
Yeah,
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
very like these comically kind of like emphasized big cheeks and stuff. Yeah.
Right.
That kind of leads us to the preparations. We see him kind of training, and this is where he where he finally says to Tomoe, like, hey, I gotta do this duel, but when I come back, we're gonna get married. And she's like, I already getting married to someone
Oh
else.
my god.
Man,
You
crushes.
snooze, you lose, man.
That entire scene, though, is so, I don't know, sensual and amazing.
Mhm.
For sure.
Where he's basically forced to ask her over because, again, it's like his hygiene is a problem. And we also understand part of why it's a problem. It's like it's the last thing on Earth he has time for, and he has such kind of limited, resources and everything. But then you get just this extremely intimate scene of where she's she's caring for him, kind of before he goes off to possible death. And yeah, you kind of get the sense like the electricity is like too much for him to handle. And yeah, he finally confesses his feelings, which basically go all the way back to his childhood, that it was always her, and that actually he still couldn't stop thinking about her even when he got married. And oh my god, yeah, she has to break the news that it's like he's too late. She did accept
It's brutal.
this proposal, like, what is it, 2 days earlier or something?
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
Yeah. Not just that, but it's in another location. She'll be taken away from them completely. It's not that she won't be married to him, but she's going to a different prefecture entirely. There's another great thing that I like with the use of the forgetful mother is when she first shows up at their house earlier in the film. There's a really funny moment where they're all together and the mom remembers her, but she doesn't remember Iguchi.
Yeah.
And then actually at the end of this scene, it's actually a really dramatic moment where
Yeah,
the mom
She
shows
forgot
up
Tomoe,
and then
too.
she talks to her, and at that moment she doesn't remember her, and she just has to basically explain her relationship to this man that she, as of right now, doesn't know if she'll ever see again, and just poured his heart out to her. So it's an incredibly smart use of what could also just be a gag. And yeah, I think it's just masterfully handled.
Totally. I do love whenever a movie takes something that was like a running joke, but then kind of twist it in a way that's like, heartfelt or kind of makes you think. Where it's like there's still a twinge of like the humor in it, but it kind of, shows in a different perspective.
Yeah.
So now our hero is going to the house, and I love that the guy that he killed's still there.
They're
He's just
like
laying in front of the house
flies
with
are
bugs around
buzzing
him.
Yeah, we
him,
couldn't
yeah.
get
Yeah.
close enough to remove the body.
Yeah.
Right.
And he goes inside, and this is another great kind of twist. Like everything is being set up for like a classic showdown in this tight quarters. But our villain Zenimon is just kind of sitting there, and he's like offers Seibei a
Tea or
drink,
something, yeah.
and they kind of like just talk it out for a while.
You realize how similar they are. He talks about
Yeah.
the struggle of his life and how hardship fell upon his family. He lost his wife and
His daughter,
daughter
yeah.
who was like, he says something like she was 16. This is when she was supposed to bloom, and these are her ashes. He like has a cup full of her ashes right there.
And he eats some of them, which is
He
a little
eats
weird.
them. Yeah, there's a wild thing that's happening in the scene where his appearance is very ghoulish. Like he's
Yes.
looks very unwell. He has a very sickly color to his skin, and
Yeah, sort of
he's
gray
hanging out in the
almost.
dark, and he's eating the ashes of his daughter. But he's having this very like heartful moment where he's connecting with Seibei, and so it's such an interesting balance. It gives everything kind of an intimidating, scary element to it, but also a very like
absolutely.
human connection between these two characters.
And he kind of gives him the context that his allegiance to the clan is still kind of new in the grand scheme of his life. And I mean, it's to him it's ridiculous for him to kind of follow through with the order. And yeah, it's sort of like confession by confession. We see these two men getting closer. But a couple of important distinctions already, I think, if we're kind of noticing carefully. I mean, one, Iguchi isn't eating anyone's ashes. That's usually kind of a tell. But you know, also he's here because he ultimately, you know, was accountable to his duty, and did his absolute best to resist it and kind of stand for what he stands for. But yeah, I love just kind of on rewatch that there are a couple of little breadcrumbs to kind of reveal what's distinct between these two men also, which is,
And it's
I
like
think something that's
Seibei
kind of
is
powerful.
kind of prepared to let this guy go, but we're also kind of
Exactly.
seeing that maybe this guy's too far gone at this point, you
Mm.
know.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love, as these layers are peeled away and as you kind of get the sense that Iguchi is more understanding of the situation, he like accidentally like reveals that he sold his sword and he's just got a bamboo
To pay
sword.
for his wife's funeral.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it was like it was like relevant to kind of the stories they were confiding in each other.
yeah,
And then
And
I
that's a bridge
love
too
how
far.
Yamada comes in on this kind of close up
mhm,
Yeah.
on Yogo's face, and in that instant you can tell it's like this is not someone cut from Iguchi's cloth, really.
mhm.
This is someone that still has that kind of animal instinct of, I don't know, like opportunism or whatever, or even just kind of, maybe it's just a survival instinct. But yeah, our guy has said too much. And he tries to kind of cover his tracks a little bit and mentions it's like, well, it's his short sword, and that's, you know,
He's like, well, that's what I'm actually good at, is the short
he
sword.
was
So
called
like,
upon.
it'd be an honorable kill, I promise.
And he's also kind of getting ready to just spell it out that he's, you know, prepared to let Yogo go, but I think it's too late.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is where the fight breaks out.
Mm-hmm.
And it does end up playing out like these overseers had hoped. You know, there's a really great choreography. They use pretty much all of the inches of this like floor of this house. There's some great shots where Hiroyuki Sanada's running from him and he's like stabbing through the paper sheets of the
The rice paper, yeah.
and it looks real to me. I mean,
Yeah.
but
And Iguchi's suffering some pretty serious strikes.
yeah,
too.
he gets a slash in his arm, and yeah. But what ends up happening here is that yes, he goes to strike. The ceiling is too low. His sword gets caught, and the Kodachi
So
is
good.
what wins him this match.
I love how it's, I don't know, it's very, it's very, I don't know, I guess not subtle, but I love it, where it's like the reason this fight started is because he felt like Iguchi was disrespecting like the katana kind of as part of the samurai's kit.
Right.
And then that's what ends up killing him because the sword's too big.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the whole reason why Seibei is brought in is because of the short sword, and they basically lay out this whole scenario where they're like, his long sword's going to get caught in the ceiling, and then even later, like when we were saying he was telling his opponent, like, I've got the short sword, it gives me an advantage, and you can see them kind of navigating that a little bit, where he keeps his eye on the what's his name, Yogo keeps his eye on the ceiling here and there, but in a moment he slips, and then it plays out exactly as they had told you it was going to.
Yeah, you're so right.
And it really doesn't take away from the tension when you see the change in Yogo's eyes, and you understand that the fight's gonna start. You're like, uh-oh. I mean, you know, things have been pretty rough for our Twilight Samurai throughout this whole film. Like, could this be like a tragic ending?
And I love the moments like following
Yeah.
what is the final strike. Yogo's still a very terrifying figure here. I don't know. Again, the camera stays extremely quiet, and I don't know. I mean, I think there's a real sense of danger in this, and his final actual like moment of collapse is just, I don't know, just really tragic and kind of brutal.
Yeah, he grabs that cup of ash again, and he's got a couple final lines. He asks if he can still get away, and then he comments on the darkness that's the death kind of falling over him, and yeah, he collapses and spills that ash on the floor.
And the kind of the great button on the whole story is that Seibei is like limping home because he's completely exhausted and got messed up in the fight. Then whenever he gets there, he's excited to see his daughters, but then we also see that Tomoe is still there.
Yay!
Yeah.
She didn't end up leaving.
Mm-hmm. It's so interesting because
both of their performances in this scene are just so raw and great. Oh man,
yeah,
so good.
and we really should mention that Rie Miyazawa's performance in this film is just the tops. You know, any scene she's in,
Yeah, she's great.
just so subtle yet so powerful, and you get this catharsis of them finally being together, and then the Ito's narration pulls us through to the end of the film, and we get to see her, who you mentioned earlier, Joey.
Yeah.
But it is kind of funny how they're like, oh yeah, also he did end up dying.
Well, it's just this very bittersweet thing.
Yeah.
You know, that again, kind of that To Kill a Mockingbird, Stand By Me kind of
Yes.
thing. It's like we had this beautiful moment, but part of what makes it beautiful is how fleeting it was.
Yeah.
And in general, I have to say, like the narration is so exceptional in this. It's one of the things I'm most fond of in the movie, and I don't know, it's probably pretty well known, like as far as kind of movie screenplays go, is often narration can be a crutch, or in the history of movies, sometimes narration is kind of an 11th hour, Hail Mary sort of fix in the edit of something that isn't working. And usually in those cases, it's like they kind of tee us up and then they kind of lead us back out of the theater. But here I feel like Ito's narration is just a really consistent presence in the movie. And I don't know, it's just the perfect point of view. And I just happen to love this sort of flavor of like, oh, we've made it, like here's the happy end, and before you can even finish the sentence, you're also having to grapple with how melancholic and, I don't know, tragic and fleeting it all is. I love it for some reason.
Yeah, there's a quality I really love about Yamada's movies that is this sort of like life goes on quality, where in the Tora-san movies, like I said, each movie ends in heartbreak, where he doesn't end up with this woman that he's in love with, but there's always kind of a little addendum at the end where you see him selling on the road and hanging out with his kind of rascally friends and things like that, or you follow up with another character or sometimes follow up with the love interest character and see where she's at, and you just get the sense that like this very dramatic moment played out in these people's lives, but then even though it's the end of the movie, their lives continue, and the lives of the people around them continue, and on a like even bigger scale, the lives of like everyone on Earth continues, and so everyone's stories kind of like continue to push forward on a like grand scale, and so I think that's really that same sense I get that from this kind of a little bit at the end where it's like, and then a few years later he died in the war, which kind of like also illustrates, the tumultuous times that they were leading towards, but it also says, we see this kind of beautiful moment, cinematic moment of narrative in his life, and then it gets cut short, but then his daughter's life continues, and she's having her own moments, and everyone else in her lives are having their moments, and I love to see that kind of depicted in that way, in a very plain way,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Right.
Yeah, she mentions that Tomoe took them in and they moved to Edo and they had long full lives and they were married and all of this stuff. It's really touching. I love that both of you guys framed it that way. Because, like, in one way you could be like, wait, what? He's dead? But I think it's really important to mention that kind of overarching feeling of it all.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Great movie. No, and it really does. It does tie it. It kind of ties it all together, because one of the things that she says in that closing kind of monologue is that basically people saw that his life was unlucky, but he really did lead a really great life, even if it was short, even if it had a lot of hardship. And that's all we can all really hope for ourselves. Is to lead a life where we help the people around us and all that. It's what movies do, make you think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do really hope that this trilogy of films gets some type of modern release. That'd be great. This is what, Shochiku? I think that
Yeah,
released it?
Shochiku.
And so I don't know. We'll see. And to speak on the other two films, I did revisit The Hidden Blade, the follow up to this, and these are kind of a spiritual trilogy, and it's more. I think there's a little bit more action, and I think the kind of samurai antics play a more central role in that film. But you still get a lot of these similar things where you've got a man trying to push his way through a system. And then almost in a different way, it's kind of like not a vigilante, but he's acting out against it. The thing that we didn't really mention is, we mentioned like the period it takes place in, but there's like a funny moment in this film where there's some samurai that it seems like they're learning to use guns. And one of the standout moments that I remember from The Hidden Blade, which I was, before I rewatched these both, I was wondering which movie it was in, is there's a hilarious moment where they're practicing firing a cannon and it's in front of like a whole like regiment, and the cannon like goes off and like flies beyond like a hill that they're like, it's really funny. Anyways, I'd recommend watching them all.
Yeah, again, it's sort of like deflating the idea of samurai in a movie in a way. I think all three of his samurai trilogy are good. This is definitely the clear best of the films. But I would love to see, I'm always dying for Yoji Yamada to get more recognition in English, and I do wish that these boutique publishers would latch onto his movies. And I know the Tora-san movies are kind of a hard ask because that's 50 films, and you really, I do think, get the best experience if you do actually watch all of them. But like, I think he has a lot of really great individual films in his filmography outside of that too. So I do think Shochiku might be one of the studios that's harder to license from, but Criterion obviously has a relationship with them, so it would be, I think, fitting for them to get into his filmography.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and we've kind of talked about this sort of thing before, but yeah, I would love to see a gradual trend over time of Asian cinema appreciation in the West being less tied to kind of this sort of like cult genre kind of interest. I mean, and it's because also just like facts on the ground. We're talking about like such a rich body of art that is not neatly kind of contained into those buckets. So
yeah, because I love this movie, and I love that it got the recognition from the Academy Awards and got a little bit of distribution in the US and stuff. But there is a part of me that's a little cynical that is like, well, of course his samurai movies are the ones that get brought over to
right.
I think didn't some of the Tora-sans get released through Animego?
Animego did a set of the first 4 Tora-sans. And
that's all I knew about.
Obviously had kind of the ambitions to keep going forward, but I can't imagine that they sold very well, and I think it just didn't continue. And unfortunately, the 2 movies that he didn't direct are movies 3 and 4, so you get 2 movies by other folks, but they're perfectly fine. But it's really the kind of like, that's the first Tora-san movie is 1969, and I think the mid to late 70s is where it really starts to hit its like peak of the best of the best films. So like, you could do a thing where you kind of like pick and choose a little bit. A French publisher has just started, Roboto has just started to release the Tora-san movies. So I've kind of been keeping an eye on them to see how those are doing.
Do you know if they have English subtitles on them?
No, but the Japanese Blu-rays have English subtitles on them.
Oh, wow.
And
cool.
you can, in fact, buy... So Tora-san has an iconic suitcase that he travels around with, and there is a set that is sold in a suitcase.
Amazing.
I've kind of had my eye on for a long time. Next time I have a couple $1,000s ready to spend.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, let's pass it to you so you can promote yourself to get that money.
Yeah. Let's say we wrapped up the film, but yeah, thank you so much, Joey, for joining us for this one.
Yeah, thanks for having me. If folks want to follow me, I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram are probably the best social media to find me at. Joey Weiser on Blue Sky and Joey Weiser Comics on Instagram. I'm a cartoonist. My latest graphic novel is called The Littlest Fighter, which is a kaiju-inspired graphic novel about a kaiju about the size of a human kid that wants to battle giant monsters. So if that sounds fun, you should check it out.
Amazing.
It does.
As well as Dragon Racer and Ghost Hog and lots of stuff that are comics that are good for kids, but I have readers of all ages, including adults. So check them out if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, and this episode of Heroes 3 is a little more all age appropriate than the last one we had Joey on, so I'm glad we got to do that this time.
Oh yeah, that's right. the pink films one.
Yeah, with
a little bit of both.
The pink School of the Holy Beast. Look, you gotta have a little both.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you so much for checking out our show. If you enjoyed it, then you can check us out at Heroes the Number 3 Podcast on all your social medias of choice. Instagram is probably gonna be the main one, and Twitter gonna be the main ones where Carlos will interact with you because I'm not so good at the other stuff. If you like this episode specifically, then you can leave us a comment on Spotify. We'll check out all those. Do you have a 50 movie series that you think we should check out? We might, but either way, we would love to hear about it. Send us an email at heroes3podcast@gmail.com. So I've been really bad about keeping up with the management side of Heroes 3 headquarters, so I'm going to just pass it over to Carlos. What are we watching next week?
Yeah, no problem, man. I'm happy to share the load. We are going to be talking about Japanese cinema again, and we're going to be covering the film called The Ninja Hunt, Ninja Gari. This is a 1964 ninja film directed by Tetsuya Yamauchi. And there might be a guest emerging from the shadows to talk about it with us.
Good stuff.
Nice.
Well, until next week, we're taking a look at The Ninja Hunt. I'm Matthew.
I'm Marty.
I'm Carlos.
Oh, and I'm Joey. I'm here too.
Yes.
And we are the Heroes 3 plus Joey. Remember your training. Heroes 3 is part of the Mercado Brothers Podcast Network.